So anybody that watches the NFL Network or ESPN knows that you're supposed to believe 100% that the Denver Broncos are a can't-miss prediction to be a Super Bowl team out of the AFC in 2013. Now, don't get me wrong. Peyton Manning is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, even if I'm not the biggest fan of his. The Denver Broncos have a lot of things going for them on paper and had a very, very good 2012 season. This is a team, let's not forget, that has made the playoffs 2 straight years. You can classify the Broncos as an elite AFC team. There's no question about it. There's also no question that they get even more attention and they get even more publicity and buzz and press and Super Bowl hype because they have the great white hope Peyton Manning as their quarterback. There's just no question about that. It can't even be argued. What can also be argued is that the Denver Broncos' window of opportunity to win a World Championship is very small. That window is right now. They're all in. They have no choice. The time to win it is right now, which is why you saw the Broncos be big spenders in free agency, going and getting Vasquez, the guard, and Wes Welker. They spent big money on these guys because they know they're that close. And if they're going to capitalize while Peyton Manning's still around and Peyton Manning's still healthy, they've got to surround him with as many pieces and as many players that can help him get there as they possibly can. They re-signed Ryan Clady. They drafted Monte Ball in the 2nd round. This is a unit in general that has a good balance of youth and experience. They have explosive playmakers like Demaryius Thomas on the outside. They have a really nice number 2 wide receiver in Eric Decker. That's a hell of a 1-2-3 combination at wide receiver. The best 1-2-3 combination at wide receiver in the league when you look at Thomas and Decker and Wes Welker. That's scary. That's going to cause a lot of matchup problems for a lot of opposing secondaries in 2013. Now, excuse me, this is a team, their offense is explosive, and I think they can move the ball, they can generate a lot of yards, they can score a lot of points. They're explosive, yes, but sometimes I wonder if they're going to be basic enough. And what I mean by that is Peyton Manning going to put the brakes on himself sometimes and stop being what he has been throughout different points in his career, his own worst enemy, and being too greedy and being too much about himself and wanting to take too much of the responsibility. You're going to have a running game there with guys like Monte Ball and Noshawn Moreno and Ronnie Hillman. You've got to trust in those guys to be able to get some tough yards for you in certain situations. You have to understand, if you're Peyton Manning, that you can't just throw your way to a Super Bowl victory. It's just not going to happen. It just will not. He's got some talent there at running back. Trust in them. Use them. I also question for Denver why they've neglected the tight end position so much. Peyton Manning, for so many years in Indianapolis, whether it was Ken Dilger or Marcus Pollard or Dallas Clark, always had that great safety valve, that great tight end that he could go to in tight spots. They don't have that in Denver. Yeah, they have 3 great wide receivers, but they really have half of a tight end. They don't have much. What, Julius Thomas? Joel Dreesen? Oh, I bet that makes a lot of teams go, seriously. So, do they have a tight end? Are they going to make some of the basic plays they need to? Is Peyton Manning going to back off at times when he needs to in order to help this team take that next step? Defensively, they lost Elvis Dumervil to Faxgate. Von Miller suspended for the first few games of the season. They added people like Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie. This is a good unit, but it is not an elite unit no matter how much Bronco fans, other NFL people, and the talking heads on TV say. This is not an elite defensive unit yet, and the Baltimore Ravens showed that in the playoffs in the 2012 season. Can this D make the big stops that they need to at the big moments at the big times? Can they do more than just rush the passer? Their secondary, I don't think, was very good in 2012. I think at times they were somewhat shaky against the run. It's not always just about necessarily what the statistics say. Sometimes you have to trust what your eyeballs see. And sometimes your eyeballs tell you is that this defense is a bit of a fraud. They're a good unit, but they're not nearly as great as everybody makes them out to be. How will the loss of a Dumervil, the suspension of somebody like the caliber of a Von Miller affect this team? Can this defense early on in the year adjust to not having a stud like Von Miller? Can they adjust to not having somebody like Dumervil? Are they going to be able to get by until Von Miller returns? That's an interesting question. And you've got the Ravens in week number 1. They've got the Colts at Indy in week number 7. They've got the Patriots at New England in week number 12. Just think about that. You've got a Peyton Manning-led team. They started off the season at home against Baltimore, the team that knocked them out of the playoffs in Mile High last year. Then Week 7, maybe the most compelling single storyline of a game in 2013, Peyton Manning going back to Lucas Oil Stadium to face off with his replacement, Andrew Luck, and his team, the Indianapolis Colts. And then, of course, Week 12, the matchup that the media just loves, and most of us as football fans love for whatever reason, and that's Tom Brady versus Peyton Manning. These are some of the games you need to watch for the Broncos. The bottom line is I do think the Broncos are the class of the AFC West. I think they're going to win this division by 2, maybe even 3 games, if not more. They're probably going to win somewhere between 12 to 14 games in the regular season. They're going to follow the MO of a typical Peyton Manning-led team. They're going to be that type of team that wins a bunch of games in the regular season, gets home field advantage or a first-round bye in the playoffs, and then doesn't win the Super Bowl because of one reason or the other. That's what I envision for the Denver Broncos, a team that could get very, very close this year, but I wouldn't necessarily go all in on them being slam-dunk, can't-miss picks to go to the Super Bowl out of the AFC.